Back here live on another Revved Up Sports Show, special Tuesday edition here of the greatest motorsports show in Texas. Live in color, real race talk as always. Showtime Bobby Chappie right here. Iceman Rodney Rodriguez, that's that man right back over there.
Hi, guys.
On the other side of the screen, welcome back from Mexico.
Oh, my God.
There, good sir.
I think I'm going to relocate, dude. It was great. I mean, what a good time. I don't know why people dislike Mexico. It's really cool. It's really cool, but really hot. I mean, it's really hot, but it's all good. It was a good time away.
Well, that's what vacations are supposed to be for, right? We're supposed to be good times to get away and all that good stuff.
That's
but
what they say, man.
Lots of interesting tidbits going on in the world of motorsports. I think if I read the email correctly, we actually will be back on a Saturday show. Come Saturday at 11 a.m. They're on the Horn.
Yep. Going to be back doing that. We can talk about Supercross and all that good stuff as they have fired off once again. So it's always really good. And that's one of the things, Brad Bush coming up here in just a little bit. We'll talk with him. Always a great conversation there with Brad. I mean, he's just so in the know with everything that's going on, not only here, but around the country. So that'll be really cool. But when Supercross fires off in January and Florida's off in racing, I mean, that's when you know that it's about time to get fired up and get after it.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the time. Usually that's when the official start of the racing season hits the reset button when you see all the stuff from Anaheim 1. You used to see a lot more time with the NASCAR stuff when the guys would come over from Atlanta. A lot of times there when they do some preseason testing and stuff like that. So it's the official calendar reset for racing. Next thing you know, we'll have the 24 hours race here, and then lo and behold, about 45 so days away from the Daytona 500.
A lot of these guys these days are busy at the Chili Bowl, and that thing is going hot and heavy on Flow Sports. You can check that thing out. As I was watching one of the heat races earlier, and you had about a couple of cars flip over and all this other stuff. Alex Bowman won a heat race right there, so all of that is happening. So Bobby, your thoughts with that? I mean, I know that Bowman is there and some other guys, but I really think that it's cool not having Chris Bell and Kyle Larson there. I mean, because that's one of the things where we talk about with short track racing. When these guys start invading in there, when Larson shows up, he's going to win. I mean, he's going to be right up there. He's going to be the guy to beat. But I kind of like this Chili Bowl that we're watching this year because those guys aren't there. And I think that adds a whole different – that's two guys that aren't going to be in that A main when you get down to shit and get at the end of this.
Well, I think it opens up the door for a couple of newer names to come through there. Obviously, when you get some of the heavier hitters from Keith Kunz Motorsports, the buy rides, if you will, for some of those, it will open up the door for 2 extra spots. I mean, there's never a guarantee that Seabell and Larson would not make it to the A main, but chances are fairly good that they would. Larson's been putting on a pretty good show at the Wild West Shootout down there in Vado Speed Park, just outside of El Paso. So he's still racing. But he's not racing. I think it's a way, because I think he said last year that the Chili Bowl just didn't pay enough for the amount of money that you got into it. So they ran for $10,000 on Sunday night there at the Wild West Shootout. He finished second to Jonathan Davenport. Davenport back-to-back winners of $10,000. So he's already starting to cash the check. If he wins all 5 nights, he wins a huge bonus. But I don't think he's going to do he's good, but I don't think he's going to win 5 nights worth.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I do think that they'll need to start looking at. And we saw it this past year in 2022 at Snowball, to where it was more, there was more money involved right there. I mean, I think, it was over $50K by the time it was all said and done, for the winner right there. But I think that's something, it is. I mean, at some point for these teams, I mean, because it used to be with the Chili Bowl and a lot of these races to where it was. I mean, it was one of those things to where as short track folks, you congregated there for this big event. But I mean, now it's so expensive to get there. And I think that trickles all down. And I mean, we talk about it all the time here. And I know people are getting pissed off at opinions. But I mean, when you start getting into you're having to spend more money than it's worth going for, I mean, that's something that needs to be looked at. And obviously right there with Chili Bowl, I think that's something that's factoring in, and we're going to continue to see that. I mean, with the super late model thing, with the asphalt and all of that, with that going back and forth, we're seeing more money involved there, to where money's going to drive everything, because the faster you want to go, it's going to cost more money, and it doesn't matter how you spend it. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Well, I think so. I mean, money by speed, how fast you want to go is always
cubic dollars.
The motto. that a lot of people go with. And I think part of it too is what makes the Chili Bowl unique is that the dollar for fun amount varies by what your goals are for the Chili Bowl. A lot of guys just want to go and compete and have a good time. Those are the guys that race in your alphabet soup. That's not
Right.
always the ones that make the A main, right? There's the ones that come out there to win, like your Larsons, your Bells, and your Logan Schuharts and stuff along those lines. So I think where it is, but you got to understand from a fan perspective too, it's not necessarily cheap to take off for a week from work and try to come out and spend all week there inside the Chili Bowl. So it becomes a challenge for the fans, even as much as it does the teams and stuff.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's what it all comes down to. I mean, because for the fan, it's great. I mean, to get out there and go do that, the fan experience, all of that, just like with the Derby and all of these, All-American 400, the Oxford 250, for the fan, it's great to get out there. But also as well, you know, for the fans, I mean, to go to Tulsa, you know, it's one of those things to where I mean, money drives it all, and we are seeing it. But I think that this is going to level this thing out, and it, yeah. Thank you, Mark. I mean, that's what we were just saying. He's not at the Chili Bowl. That's kind of the point of all of this, is that you know, he's not doing that because what he said last year. I mean, it's not conducive for him to do it for what it's going to cost to do this. And I think, like Bobby, you were talking about, we get to this even with short track racing here in Texas, to where you get to a big factory stock show. If you can get to the final B main and you miss, you don't make the final 24, you've done something, and that kind of sucks. But I mean, I guess a win's a win, no matter how you spin it.
No, I mean, I think a win's a win. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to complain when they win there on Saturday night, be like, oh, you know, this doesn't mean as much to me because Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell aren't here.
Right.
But they're going to cash that check and they're going to put that trophy up on the mantle and talk about how much of a big ass win it was. So I think the fact that they're gone, while it's a talking point now, I mean, maybe it'll be one of those things when you get like a Rico Abreu or somebody that's going to win it again and say, well, you know, they're not here, but we won it anyway. I don't think you're going to get the naysayers. Oh, well, if Larson was there, you know, you wouldn't have won. If Christopher Bell was there, you wouldn't have won, because those guys don't always win. Well, I guess actually, technically, I guess they always do.
They always
one of the
do
two
win.
of them.
They always
yeah,
do
one
win.
of the two of them won the last five. So
Right. And that's where, you know, you got to get real with this thing. And that's why I brought that up. I mean, because seriously, it's one, you know, so many people want to beat up on all the, you know, whatever shows around the country. And it's like, well, you know, so-and-so comes and shows up and wins. Well, it's like, okay, when you take two of the biggest factors of it out, I mean, that levels the playing field. Like I said, that's two more participants in the A main that those two guys would have taken and would have been at the front of the pack. I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, they'd have been in the top 4, 5, or 6 at least. And that's, you know, I hate to be a naysayer, but I really do like that as big of a show that this has become. I mean, for crying out loud, we're sitting here, you know, on Flow Sports. It's on every night, and then it's going to be on MAV TV for the you know, the final. It's a big deal, and for as much as we want the common racer to be able to have a chance with that, I mean, to me, this is a great thing that they're not there.
I think it opens up the door. It really does. But I think also, you know, I don't know if you're going to have the fan reaction that you would, right? I think that becomes the thing. Did the fans come to watch Larson? Did the fans come to watch Christopher Bell? Does Larson move the needle enough? I mean, we've seen it in a dirt track world while he was suspended from NASCAR. Larson moved that needle. He really did. He moves the needle now, much like we saw Chase Elliott when he ran the 2020 Snowball Derby. There were people that weren't intending to go to the Snowball Derby. Once they found out that Chase Elliott was racing in it, they bought tickets. We actually talked to somebody in the parking lot that morning about it.
Absolutely.
And so I think that the Chili Bowl will still be full, while I think the Chili Bowl will still be good and great without Larson and Bell. I think what it's really going to come down to is to whether or not the fans react to somebody else winning and dominating that race.
Well, and hopefully what happens is, I mean, kind of to me, the goal with this is, I mean, we just saw it with Derek Thorne. You know, everything that he has been through, the many times that he had lost the Snowball Derby, and finally is able to put it all together in the story of that team. I mean, to me, and again, that's a big money race team right there. But Derek Thorne isn't a guy that's hired to race. I mean, Derek Thorne is a guy that just shows up and races for that team, and he's done it for a long time. So I think that this really does afford somebody the opportunity to be that story. where we are just longing for good, feel-good short track stories. I think that maybe this is the year with Chili Bowl. I mean, if somebody can sneak in there and pull that thing off, man, that would be great. And to me, it's even more impressive to do it at the Chili Bowl because snowball's one thing. It's a lot of practice. It's a lot of practice. You got to cut 2 good laps, and if you don't, you're going to be in the last chance. Then you got to get through all of that melee. But if this is different because this is right here a week's worth of work to try to get into that A main.
It really is. I mean, they're 2 completely different events. As we said before on the show, is that the races that are the biggest races on non-NASCAR type of stuff are the Chili Bowl and the Snowball Derby. That's the ones where the winners call in and talk to the guys at Sirius XM on the radio. That's when they talk about it all week. They'll be interviewing guys live from the Chili Bowl. So it becomes the 2 major tent poles of the off season. But I think that it's going to wake up and end up being, hopefully would be a really good show. The biggest problem that I have, we talked about this last year, is how late the A main starts.
I know.
It's supposed to come on the air about 9 o'clock, but it'll be midnight before they start racing.
Well, that's the thing. You know, you get a very small group of people that will they're going to hang around there. I mean, because like Snowball, this is a party, this is whatever. But I mean, to me, if you're trying to attract new people and local short tracks need to pay attention to this, I mean, don't keep people there that long. I've said it many times. I've been at racetracks till 4 o'clock in the morning the next day, but I've done that on my own accord. The races were over by 11, and I chose to go be there. That's the minority these days, and that's a great point. I mean, they got to keep this thing rolling. I mean, keep it moving, and they do a good job with that. But don't sit there and step on it as we have the sounder, and make this thing drag out. I mean, I just don't think that that's what you need to be doing at this point.
Well, it seems like it only happens during that last couple of hours of the show where you get that the final last chance race to try to make 2 cars are going to transfer into the big main event. Was it 20 or 24 cars that start the?
I thought it was 20. I think it's 24.
Well, I think it's 24. So
yeah,
you'll have that last 2, but it just seems like that track prep between the final last chance race to get in and the opening of the A main just takes forever, and it just becomes a really downer. When you got all that momentum of everybody trying to get in, and then you got to sit around and wait for a couple of hours while they fix the track.
Yeah.
I get why they do it. They're trying to make the best surface for the main event, but at the same time, it's like, damn, come on, guys, speed this shit up.
Yeah, no shit. Before we get to Brad Bush, I had a lot of comments, with our show the last time about San Antonio. We were talking to Nick Holt and all that. It was by all means not our intention to squash that dream of that racetrack reopening. And with Nick, speaking for Bobby, I think that I speak for you as well. We just thought that it would be a really good, insider right there, just like Brad's about to be, which this is not a conversation about San Antonio with Brad, but we just thought that would be a really good insider to talk about everything that's entailed with doing that. And I caught a lot of shit that I'm being negative and I'm whatever. I'm just being real, guys. I mean, you got a racetrack in Houston right now. I think that's where the focus needs to be if you want to race asphalt. Drag racing, I don't know. Well, shit, they got one there too. I mean, they're all in one. What we're hoping happens in San Antonio is already there for you. Go there. But it was not the intention with that group that's doing that to squash any of that. So we just thought I'll take the blame. I just thought that was going to be the best person to really speak to what was going to have to happen in that facility to get it going again.
Well, and there's a lot of negative to it, right? I mean, there's a lot more questions than answers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to see that a couple of Facebook posts got the motorsports world in South Texas and San Antonio fired up like we haven't seen in 25 years. So that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing to see that the parts people and the racing people in San Antonio are clamoring for a racetrack. And we hope like hell it gets built.
Sure.
As we said, prove us wrong, and we'll be the first ones to say, shit, I thought we didn't think it was going to happen, but here it is. We'll be there opening night and support it any way we can.
Yeah, no doubt. And that was the thing. And I get it. I mean, I know a lot of folks, the hearts are into the place and want it to work out. And again, Nick called me and he's like, man, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause any friction. I'm like, dude, don't worry. I mean, you were just kind of the one that I thought would be the one. I mean, because he's the one on the intel. He saw the place from the ground up, and that's really the whole thought with that. And like we said, like you said it well. If it all works out, man, we'll be there with bells on. I can't wait to see it happen.
Yeah, I mean, once it gets announced, I mean, we'll be there and try to do anything we can to make it be successful as it can. But it's a challenge, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing about everything that's trying to be the partake there in San Antonio. For us, trying to be the more journalistic type, and obviously we get opinionated because that, we have this show, we have the right to be opinionated on this show.
Yeah.
Because that's what we call it, real race talk. But the deal is that there was a hell of a lot more questions than answers based upon a couple of just random Facebook posts, and they blew up. 500-600 shares. That's badass. That's great.
Yeah.
But it's also at the same time, we'll ask for volunteers and everything else when it comes time. Well, what are you trying to do? Lay out a picture of the racetrack. Do something else other than just a picture and a small video of a dragster with a couple of flames behind it. They didn't say anything other than coming soon.
Right.
Now, yes, it caught the world on fire, and that's great, and that's really good. But at the same time, show us something, man. Show us something give us something to believe in.
Well, and I'll be honest with you. Tell me your name. I mean, I know who it is, but I mean, give me a video.
But you had to dig for that, though.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was one spokesperson. You had to dig and ask around to find out who the hell it was.
I did, but that's what I do. But I'm an asshole for doing that. But that's okay. All right, let's go to the Lone Star Speed Zone hotline. We're just talking racing. I mean, and kind of what we want to do during the off season. We want to talk to some of our favorite insiders and people in the know when it comes to just racing and get their thoughts on what's happening. And this dude right here, as we posted on the Facebook post. I mean, it's one of to me, like it said on there, a very young man that has done exceptional at everything that he's done in the business because he's been a part of it all his life, like many of us have. We're heading south, and we're talking to our friend. It's Double B, Mr. Brad Bush. How we doing, sir?
Pretty good, boys. How y'all doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Just sitting here having hashtag real race talk. First and foremost, my man, family good, holidays, all of that. I mean, that's really the most important thing.
Yeah, no, we've been real good so far. Chasing these two girls around that I got now, so keeps you on your toes for sure. But no, everybody's been pretty healthy in our family and had a pretty good holidays. Got to go to Snowball took the kids and the wife and everything. So had a fun trip down there. Always good to go watch everything at the Derby. Didn't get to go last year, so that was a lot of fun to kind of get them down there. The weather was pretty good, so it was always good to see all the old friends and stuff and watch some good racing down there too.
No doubt.
So Brad, we didn't want to throw you directly into the fire. We got a lot of flack last week about being the ones to try to talk negative about this whole San Antonio Speedway experience and getting it fired back up and running again. As someone that has been there and done that and knows the challenge of that more so than anybody, other than maybe Chris and those guys, talk about the challenges of that place, man. I mean, it's going to take a whole hell of a lot to get that oval track back going. To some extent, not including what they want to do with the drag strip back there.
Yeah, I mean, it's whenever it reopened in 2012, I think a lot of people at that point didn't think it would reopen. So it's further removed now from the last event than it was at that time, and it was a lot of effort that went into it by many people at that point. And so yeah, I'm like everybody else. You see all the stuff on Facebook come out, and I think everybody can be hopeful. I don't ever want to shoot anything down. If it's a real deal, that's great. And just like y'all said a while ago, we'll be there and support it, no doubt. But I mean, obviously, because of the things that have happened over the years with many different people coming in with grand plans and schemes and stuff, everybody's kind of got their antenna up on it. The main difficulties, I don't know what the city involvement would be in the county. There was a lot of problems dealing with the county back in 2012. There was a lot of stuff that Chris and Brian had to do to make those events work, and I can't imagine that any of that's gotten any easier 10 years later. And just now you got housing out there. There's a lot of things that are kind of, I guess, going against it. It just from a standpoint of if you're starting a racetrack, where would you want to start one at? One that's kind of in a different area. We all have memories and ties to that land, so that's cool if you can get that going again. But the track itself needs so much work. Mainly the half mile, but the drag strip is pretty much gone. I mean, it's I think last ran in maybe y'all would know 405. I don't even know when they last ran there. But I mean, there's buildings been built. The track it has to be totally repaved for the drag strip alone. You have no bleachers. I mean, you're starting from scratch on that. And the asphalt track is probably pretty similar at this point. I can't imagine that the track was pretty rough when we ran on it the last time, and the bleachers are older than when we were there last time and rebuilt them then. So, it'd be great to see. I mean, I'm pulling for anything around here if we would support it, but like y'all say, man, the Houston, the I-37, the Pleasanton track, those are tracks we have right now, and people are putting everything they have into that on management and trying to keep those places going and keep them afloat. Economically, it's harder than it's ever been. So, the main thing is support the tracks that we have now, and if something comes up, that's great. I mean, we'll all be happy and have a good time with it, but you really need to get out and support tracks we have while they're here. Otherwise, they'll be just like that one is there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Brad, you mentioned there about snowball. I mean, your thoughts. Like I said, I mean, you know the inner workings of this sport. I mean, now, we've got national series. We got 2 of them. I mean, you've got the Outlaws that are now sportsmen and all of this. I mean, we'll kind of stick with the asphalt part right here. I mean, your thoughts on all of this progression that we're seeing. I mean, depending who you talk to, it seems like it's something that's going in the right direction. Other people, there's a lot of detractors. I mean, what's happening here? Let's kind of hone in with the super late models.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest problem with it seems like everything we go see a part of, the expensive racing is just getting so bad. And it doesn't matter if it's in asphalt circle track racing, drag racing, dirt track racing. Every form of racing there is, everybody that's doing it is having to spend as much money as ever. I mean, more than ever, to be competitive, to have a fair shot when you go somewhere. And it just little by little, it seems like your pool of people that are involved are getting smaller. The competitors, the competitive people, you're getting less and less. And that's everywhere. I mean, the snowball was a pretty good race this year, I thought, overall. The weekend we were down there, and we had a car in the outlaw division with Brandon Spreen racing, and didn't get to race because of the fog that rolled in at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a long day. When you're not a part of the late model deal down there, it's kind of, you hurry up, get in, mount tires, you get one practice, you stand around all day and maybe get to race. We didn't even get to race. So, and I get it. The late model deal is a big draw, and that's where they make the money and everything. So they got to take care of that and keep it going. But the racing itself, to me, the last couple of years is kind of, I mean, I don't say it's not good in the snowball itself, but ever since they went to the controlled yellows and not had the live pit stops, the racing is not the same, and you can't fabricate, making Thorne go back to 7th on one restart and have to come back through everybody. So I don't know the answer to that as far as making the shows more entertaining on that. I think you get what you get. It's 300 laps now, and it seems like, the fast guys up front the whole time. Before pit stops, there was more strategy. You move things around, you shuffled it up. There was a lot more kind of drama that came with it. I mean, it cost a lot of money to have pit stops, so I get it,
Sure.
But to me, it's kind of like they've lost a little bit in the race itself. That I don't know if there's any way that you get it back by doing anything different. I'm not really a fan of, inverts mid-race or something like that. I don't, that to me isn't that great, but you got to do something on some shows. Luckily, I mean, it's such a big prestigious race, and best of the best are there. So it's entertaining, and they kind of, I don't want to say get away with it, but it
but they get away with it.
They get away with it.
Yeah,
I mean, so everybody's going to show up just like us. We're there. We're mad we didn't get to race. You get one practice, but you'll be back, next year most likely. And every time we go, it's like, man, we need to come down here with something. It's fun. You want to have a car out there. You want to be with somebody out there or whatever. Then you go do it, and you're like, man, why do we do this? But so it's fun. I mean, it's still, to me, if anybody wants to pick a race to go to, I tell friends of mine that aren't in the racing. I mean, it's a long way to go, but if you can go, to me, it's better than going any other race there is. It's just the whole weekend, the whole taking in everything, walking the pits, seeing the stuff there, the people there. the level of competition, it's a unicorn,
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is people want to try to copy it or do something similar, and it doesn't really work because it's that unique. I mean, everybody wants to be there.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
So we've seen that come up with a couple of these national touring series with the different kind of ASA Stars series, and then you got the Southern Super Series, and we saw the JEG CRA series come out the other day with the series schedule. From your fan perspective, is that too much to take in? I mean, it seems like you've got the regional series and a couple of great big races that are more popular than the others are now going to be part of one of the ASA National Tour. Do you think that combination is going to work? I mean, we got two of them. Is there enough room for both of those national event series to race across the country?
The money aspect is the biggest problem, and I think there is if it's managed correctly. If you got the right, if tech is done well, if the racers that are racing can respect the series and want to show up and race, I mean, I think it can all work. I think we went from a point years ago where we had a lot of series and that fell apart. Now you've got individual races that are really big everywhere, and I think some kind of a traveling series would be very neat again. It just costs so much money, and again, people will spend ungodly money to go down to Snowball and try to make the show and race, and you're not making a dollar when it's all said and done. But I mean, it's the one race that people will do that for. Not the one, they'll do it for a lot of them, but it's the one that everybody wants to go be a part of and win or run competitive. I think there is enough racers still out there, and I think things can work. But I mean, again, when you start getting too much of it, then it kind of dilutes each one. In my opinion, we had the problem with too many series and kind of still doing away in round racing around here. But you start spreading more people out, and then you're going to have this one series is going to crumble because it's going to lose support quick, and maybe that's okay. I mean, maybe it's going to happen to have one or two good series and not have it so spread out. But I hope for racing in general it does take off. And some of those series can do pretty good because I think it does good for the sport in local tracks if you have big shows like that. Looking at what Ricky Brooks is doing with his new series, and that's one of them, that's kind of taken off and ran in Mobile, ran some big shows. I mean, that would be awesome to see something like that at Houston. Anything in Texas with a super late model would be a big, I think, turnout at this point because it's been so long since we really had that. I don't even remember I guess the last year USRA ran was probably the last real super late model event. What we had left at that point, and the car counts were pretty low, and it just wasn't the same that it was before. But I think if you had a show and you can get 18 to 25 cars on the track, super late models, I think it'd be huge for a huge event, and I think a lot of people would support it and be there to watch just because we haven't seen them so long.
Yeah. So speaking of Texas, I mean, let's kind of dive in right here, and we can hit dirt first. I mean, dirt is thriving. I mean, you've got a factory stock class that is, kind of blowing the doors off of everything. I mean, you've got guys that are racing for a lot of money all across this massive state. Your thoughts on that class, and then it really seems like, I mean, down your way, I mean, with the South Texas tracks with 37 and Texana and Corpus, it really seems like they have found a way to kind of work hand in hand somewhat. I mean, Owen being a big part of that because he's with two of those tracks, and Ray, that they really seem to be on a good thing right there where they got something cool happening. It seems like.
Yeah, and I mean, Owen's involvement helps tremendously on a lot of this stuff because he's been around it a long time. He's got the respect of a lot of the people overall, whether people don't like him or not. He's been involved in it a long time, and it's proven that everywhere he goes, things have worked out pretty well for the most part. So having him involved in multiple tracks is probably helping a lot of that as far as those tracks being successful. The factory stock deal to me is really cool. I mean, a lot of friends that I have that are racing in it. The competition level is insane, really, to me for a class at the level it's at. The car counts they draw, again, just like anything, it's not cheap. I mean, everything costs money to go in and be successful in racing. There's no, you're not going to race anything that doesn't cost something, on the track. So to me, what's kind of crazy is you're seeing guys that have ran bigger stuff kind of, I don't want to say step down because the competition level is so high, but they have gravitated to that class because I think it is a little bit more affordable, obviously, than running a bigger car or a late model or something like that, dirt late model, whatever you have there. But it's brought a lot of good racers together to put on shows. I mean, and like y'all were saying earlier, you make the main at some of these deals, and that's a pretty big deal. I mean, there's not a big difference between the 18th place car and the guy that wins.
Right.
And where you draw and where you get in the heat race and where all that is what matters. If you start up front, you got a shot. If you're back there in the fielders, it's not going to probably happen. I mean, there's just too many good cars to try to get through unless you got to have a lot of luck on your side.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think that is a really neat class. I wish we could get something like that to take off on the asphalt side of it. I know it's kind of been tried or talked about, and I know they're trying to do some new stuff this year. It looks like with at Houston and Venus trying to do some stuff in Mobile too with some more stock car type class. Hopefully it can accelerate and take off, because I think for the fan standpoint, if we can get cars in a class, it starts from there. You get your car count, then you have a show. Right now it's just been, aside from trucks and modified,
Yeah.
you don't really have a lot of car count. And as fans, I mean, that's not, it's not entertaining to sit there and watch. I mean, we all get it. We're fans and people, that have been around the stuff all our life too. And so we're no different than anybody else in the stands. How can they sit there and want to watch 4 cars race? That's not any good.
Yeah.
So if you can get the car count to step up to begin with, I think that any of these classes could take off. The factory stock deal to me on the dirt is really neat. I've watched several. I don't go to a lot of dirt tracks myself. But I do watch some of the stuff on, the race on Texas, and that they put on great shows. I mean, like I say, the competition is tight. There's not people just running off in a half a lap ahead. I mean, they're getting it on, and it's a lot of fun to watch, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brad, what do you think is going to make of we talked about this stuff, and we'll talk about Houston in terms of this new bootlegger class. They're trying to bring a lot of different cars out of the weeds and stuff like that. Is there a way, or can we take, an old super stock and make it compatible with a metric Monte Carlo somehow, some way? I mean, are we going to try to find a way to take the old late models that don't have the Camaro front clip? Are they going to run in that class? I mean, is there a way to make the whole package work, or is it just going to be throw it against the wall and see what sticks?
Well, it can definitely happen, because it happened not that long ago at Kyle. Whenever we were out there, we seen the class kind of go from nothing to where we had 20 plus cars, 30 cars a show, running B mains and stuff on the asphalt deal in the super stock street stock class. It's very difficult to try to get everything to work. I mean, it works at the beginning pretty well, and then over time it gets very hard, because when you have so many different combinations, the rules, and trying to keep people, I don't say just keep people happy, but try to police it to where it stays competitive and people don't have an advantage is the hardest part. And so it all goes back to who's writing the rules, who's in charge of it, to try to police it and keep the respect of the racer. But I mean, Rodney helped too. We went from like 3 cars or 1 car. I think Mickey McKim only showed up. And then the next race we had, 18 super stocks out there. And we had dirt cars. We had late models, we had Camaro, and we had a little bit of everything out there, and really nobody complained. It was kind of racers supporting a racetrack at that point. So I think it can happen. It's hard to bring people back. There's no doubt, but there's a lot of cars sitting that if you're not doing something with them, here's an option, and if you can get people to come back a little bit and have some fun with it, it's worth a shot to try to do something and do something a little bit different maybe. Because like I say, just from my perspective, looking at the last couple of years, and I've been involved in it too, some of these classes just really aren't, I don't say they're not going anywhere, but it's something's got to get better, or we got to find a different avenue that will get better, because what's being tried hasn't worked yet, so you don't want to piss on the guy that is out there supporting the track. I mean, that's great they are, but I mean, got to find something that works that we can build off of going forward.
Yeah.
So hopefully, John and them I think it's neat that they're trying this. Hopefully it works out. Hopefully some of these guys get behind it and drag cars out. There is a lot of them, and how it is. I mean, it's like these cars, they come and go. People, I've seen people buy and sell the same car 3 times. They sell it and they get it back and race it in something else and convert it this way and convert it that way. So it can all happen and be done if it's somewhat, if on the affordable side. and the technology can be kind of policed a little bit to not get out of hand, I think that's the best shot for it to grow. Because what we see in all these classes is it starts off in one area, and then as racers go, they take it to the next level. The next level, this is altered, this is changed, and they're really good at reading the rule book and going between this line and that line and getting speed, and that's the name of the game. But a lot of times it makes it difficult to keep the class on course or keep it up without losing the people that are just that you need to support the track to keep the class going.
Yeah. So Brad, your thoughts, and I mean, one of the kind of piggybacking off of what you're saying right there. I mean, I remember back. I mean, when that whole regime started at CTS. I mean, our first race in 2013. I mean, we didn't have any cars in any class, and it took a while to get that done. And I think that's a main thing to be able to just hang in there and make it happen and make the adjustments needed, which is what you guys did. But that's a lot. That's a lot, and it was lucky. We were lucky at that point that we were able, we as in the management at that time, we were able to lose money for a little bit to get that figured out. But I'd love your thoughts on the Outlaws. That to me, I love those cars. I mean, to me, that's the old late models when I was growing up at Speedorama in 16 and watching those, Hubert Bean and Charlie Cohen and Bob Bolin and all those guys. Man, those things are really taking off. A pretty cool concept, I think, to have those cars on the racetrack.
Yeah, no, I agree, and so that's what we were with at Snowball was with an Outlaw car.
Yep.
In that division down there. I think it's a really neat class. The bodies look to me really cool. There's some creativity that's kind of in there, and some of it looks pretty funky too. But I think it's an awesome class, and I think if it's same deal. If you can get the car count at Houston, if you can get the car count up in that class, which it's just starting a new class at the time it was started is a challenge because there's just there's so much uncertainty for the racer to invest money into something that you just don't know if it's going to be there long term.
Right.
And now it's kind of carried on a little further than most people probably thought, but or didn't know, and so you're fearful. I mean, I think now if people knew that they would still be able to race, maybe they would have already done something. But I think the class itself is neat. The 8-inch tire kind of is what kind of helps a lot of this stuff, in my opinion. The bigger tire, you start, obviously the horsepower and setup is a lot more of a deal. Then the 8-inch tire puts a little bit more in the driver's hands. These cars are still, they look similar from a distance, and then there's still a lot of them that are really nice, and there's other ones that are trying to be, and that's always going to be, every class, every brand of racing you get in. But I enjoy the class itself. I mean, to me, is if we can get more cars on the track in that class there, I think the fans will really like that. The modifieds have always kind of been, to me, I always liked the modifieds growing up. And for whatever reason, it just seemed like around here, they never really were a fan favorite. They never took off. In different parts of the country, there's Outlaws, and then we didn't see them this way in a long time. So when Five Flags kind of introduced that, and then this kind of came that direction too, to try it here, I thought it was kind of a neat concept for some of these older late models that were same deal. That's now we're looking at bootleggers. That's Camaros and more of a stock metric stuff. Then this was more of a late model concept of bring them back. And there is some really nice cars out there that win, but I mean, there's some cars that were older that are really competitive too. Robert Barker, kind of won a lot of races down here in a late model that he ran back in '94 when I was a little kid.
Yep.
So it can be done. I mean, obviously it's, Robert's good, and then he's a good driver. They know what they're doing and stuff like that. Got good help and good equipment also that they bolted on the thing, but they took an old car and did what they did with it. So it can be done. Now, if you get 20 of them, maybe it's a little different story. I don't know, but overall, again, I like I say, I pull for that class. You got the thing I think that I wish we could get away from, and we were guilty of it at Kyle too. You took over this deal when we came in trying to make something happen. Just all the classes, it's just
too many.
If we could get back to 4 or 5 classes and put 15 cars plus in them, instead of having the more classes, and you got 8 in this class and 9 in that one, and maybe 15 in this one and 4 in that one. That's all thing is if you can, it's hard. Everybody's got money tied up in what they own right now. So the hardest part is telling people that this class is over and we're done with it. I mean, it sucks for anybody to hear, but going forward, if we could get 4 or 5 good classes and have the race program enjoyable to watch and people want to see it and stuff like that, get over at a good time, like y'all were talking about earlier, not starting a race at midnight, one of the biggest races in the country. That's the weekly show, get in, get out, put on a show and go to the next one is kind of, when you see the successful dirt tracks, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's not 2 days at the racetrack, in all this extra time and then long days and everything. You go in here at one point, and if you have 4 or 5 classes, you don't need, 8 practice sessions or 2 rounds of all this practice time. You do that. You consolidate your day down and get in and get out and put on a show, and everybody goes home at a decent time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think you touched on it. Is it's so hard? Everybody wants a place to race in the vehicle that they have, right? And I think the problem is like there's a lot of those old super stocks that started out as really good, solid street stocks, and they cut so much out of it. I think Rodney's got one. It's a good example. They had to cut so much stuff out of it to race with the Outlaws or the super limited late model, whatever you wanted to call it. Those cars are so in between the world that it's almost like the only place they're destined for is like an outlaw street stock on a dirt track or something. So I think that, you don't want to tell anybody that they can't race, which you said is really hard. But I think that's the problem. I think that, some people just don't want to give up or accept the fact that their cars are just dinosaurs, right? They're just done. There's only so much that a racetrack can do.
Well, and that's the thing. The problem is that the guy that's got that car is probably not going to go out and build a new one. So,
right.
It's like, how do we get him? And that's where I say the tech, it's very difficult to keep it policed. I mean, Chris did a pretty good job at Kyle of getting that going. And if it looked like something was going a direction, you would try to add weight or do something to try to bring it back. But that was also, it's a touchy deal too. I mean, you're trying to keep the better of the class, and it's hard to penalize the guy that did his homework and put, God in between the rule book and stuff. But that's just part of a class like that. You're gonna, if if you're in a bigger class, the modifieds, the trucks, stuff like that. Not that the rules don't change, but I mean, they kind of are on the same course over and over. In these classes where you're kind of, it's so fabricated up where, you got pieces of this car and that car, firewalls cut, this has been replaced, this has been hacked. There's a big difference from car to car. And so, I mean, there's, they're pretty heavy on the rules from what I saw. You got a lot of weight on the car. So that's to begin with. So if a lot of stuff has been cut out, you're having to add a lot of weight. Now you can put that where you want it, so you got an advantage on that part of it. But, it's going to be one of those things where not race to race, but I mean, over time, the rules are going to have to adjust in kind of with the field as it goes. I mean, so there needs to be, but for anything to take off and be successful, it's going to have to be a pretty open mind to it. Like you say, Rodney's got a car. There's 80 of these cars laying around, if not more. But I mean, that could, they're not all going to show up. I'm not saying that, but if we can get a portion of those cars to show up and some of what you already have and try to kind of finagle between there and adjust rules and have a starting point is one of the biggest things. And so I think they've worked with that. Now, if somebody shows up and they're a little bit off, you got to find a way to fit them in. That's just the biggest thing is whatever it is with weight or something, to give them an opportunity. They've put in effort and they showed up. You got to find a way to get them in there. And that's kind of what Chris had done at Kyle.
That's what we did. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that was the biggest gist of it is just if people bring it and we'll figure out, I mean, hell, we had 9 classes. We'll put you in something, I guess, if we need to. We'll figure out a way. But I mean, the super stock deal went from as sad as it could be with one car there to we were consistently getting the last year one of the last years there, we had 24, 26 cars almost every race. And the racing was really good and it was pretty competitive. I mean, you're always going to have your 2 or 3 guys that are always up front and battling for the championship or whatever. But there was a handful of guys though that were right there with them, and if they started in front of them, could hold them off and win the race, and weren't going to get past either. So that like I say, that is every racetrack needs a class like that or something with a competitive nature like that. I think the fans enjoy those kind of cars, not just. The late models are pretty and all that stuff. I mean, and that's the top of the line. Around here, it's not realistic anymore to have them unless you're doing something really special and somebody's forking out a lot of money to try to bring something in. But I think, I see the vintage stuff and the dwarf cars, different things like that. I mean, some people that are in, that race bigger cars don't think there's a place for it or don't like it or whatever. But from the fan standpoint, when you just go sit in the grandstands, they like seeing the coupes and the dwarf cars, the different looking stuff. It is entertaining to the fans, and that's what I think a lot of us in racing that are in the cars or working on the cars and running bigger classes, you kind of lose track of where the fans actually are.
Yeah.
And it took me a little while to gravitate back to that when you work on late models or modifieds or whatever, and you spend a lot of time with those cars, that when you go sit in the grandstands and watch the reactions of people, and started doing that more at Kyle and not really at San Antonio because we didn't run many races, but at Kyle and in Houston, and seeing that, there is a place for those classes there. It's just trying to make it all work in a timely manner where people enjoy their event,
Yeah. Got to tell you, Brad, one of the funniest things about when we did have that one race, when we went from one car to like 20 or whatever it was, I invited everyone out. AJ Dancer shows up in this dirt car, and this thing was so, I don't know what kind of motor he had in there. He dominated that race in a dirt car. And Chris Sadoff came up to, and luckily he fell out of the race. Chris Sadoff came up to me after the race and he said, if he'd have won, I was going to kick your ass out in the pasture for telling people to show up, but
right.
Bring
it and let's race it. And it's like, oh, well, y'all are letting that guy run, you hate to, wish any bad luck on somebody, but it kind of worked out pretty good on that one. But I remember it like he was like two tires in the dirt most of the race and still just flying. It was like, oh my gosh, this is not good,
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I'm sure at that time people were, probably didn't like some of that or whatever. But again, it was kind of one of those events where it was like people just wanted to show up and help the track out. And I actually watched some of the 2012. I finally, the other day, I was going through cabinets and found the DVD from the 2012 Oktoberfest race that we did, the first one,
Yeah.
And I watched some of it last night, and it was like, man, that was, one of the coolest events too, that just everybody wanted to be a part of. Whenever I got done, I think at the drivers' meeting, going up to the tower, and just like everybody was so, you looked at the grandstands were completely full. There was, people sitting in the aisles and, the standing room only everywhere you looked. And it was just like everybody on pit road. I don't know that anybody complained at the end of the night. And there was people that were probably mad about something. I wouldn't say that, but everybody just wanted to be there and be a part of it, and it was, something that you couldn't duplicate or whatever. I guess if it opened again, maybe you could. But it was by far the coolest race I was ever part of.
I agree.
Just something that I grew up with and then never thought you would see again actually happen,
So, Brad, you kind of alluded to it, talk about the tower. So, Gina asked me to be a race director one time. She hadn't asked me back, not that I did a bad job or anything, but I've always wanted to know your secret to remaining calm. Because obviously, when we're up in the tower with race officials, when we're trying to announce, we get to see the chaos, we get to hear the radios, we get to see and experience everything. I don't know how in the hell you managed to remain so calm over the years. What's the secret to remaining calm while you're a race director? Because if she asked me to do it again, I'm going to need some pointers, man.
Well, some of it, the first few I did, for damn sure, I was not calm. And you're still really probably not at any point. I'm not like, so, part of that would probably be better geared for a promoter type person that I didn't like confrontation. Like as far as the racers, I didn't want to see something happen. And the sad thing is you need drama at the racetrack for it to sell and be entertaining. But I wanted a race to go, and me and Mason Mitchell talk about this when we laugh at stuff. It's like when you're up there, you just want everything to go as cleanly as possible. Nobody tear nothing up.
Yep.
Have a close finish, and it's over with. That's your hope. Like you want it to go green flag. That way there's no, oh, you made a bad call. You made this for that. And unfortunately, like I say, that's not probably the right mindset that you need to have, for the place to be successful long term. You probably need some action. And I think at one point that's kind of how Houston was really geared up with Vandenbach and what they did. And I didn't necessarily care for some of the stuff that was said or done, but it worked, so you can't knock it. But for me, I was pretty high strung on that stuff for a while, and I actually worked with, I don't know the guy's name, but he worked at Houston some, and he worked with NASCAR at some point or whatever. His name was Larry something, I think. But I don't know. I just got in the tower with him one day, and I was always pretty high strung too at the beginning. And then I watched him, and he was just like, it was like watching paint dry. He was so calm, and I'm like, okay, I guess maybe that's how you're supposed to do it. Then I mean, I guess maybe getting so worked up and excited is not really the right thing. So it just with time, it kind of got a little bit easier to deal with. I mean, when things go wrong, it's frustrating because you want things to go right, and when things are in the wrong place or people mess up and stuff like that, you just got to try to stay calm because it doesn't do, as a person, that's sitting in the corner spotting or whatever, if the guy up there is screaming and yelling on the radio,
right,
then everybody's kind of in chaos. So kind of, I guess, probably no different than a coach or anything else at that point. You're just trying to stay calm and keep everybody else on the same playing level with you. That way everybody kind of stays the course, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I always thought of you kind of like a doctor because I know in my years with the dwarf cars, we'd have like 28 cars or whatever, and we'd be out there racing, and you would sit there and call our race, and I could hear you, and you were so calm, and it's like shit's going on everywhere, and you're like just guiding us through. When we'd come up on lap traffic, you got one sitting there or whatever. I'm like, how is he so calm? And my heart's like about to explode. So your bedside
actually,
manner
that stuff was kind of
amazing.
fun. That stuff was kind of fun because I got to talk and nobody got to talk back, so it was pretty cool. You could tell them whatever you wanted. No, those, working with, there was a lot of good times at Kyle with stuff like that. That's where I probably worked the majority of the races, but, working with the Bandoleros too, the kids, watching some of these kids grow up, Caden Honeycutt, raced out there in the Bandoleros. So, got to see him as a kid racing. And then last year actually spotted for him at Five Flags at a race and we ran second. And so it was kind of neat to kind of come back around to that. You watch these kids grow up and you kind of have a hand in it a little bit. I mean, obviously not working on their stuff or, teaching them any kind of a life lesson or something like that. But you watch these kids grow up and win races, go be competitive and stuff like that. Bailey Curry, there's another one that obviously is running a lot of NASCAR stuff, and good kids, good people, good families. So a lot of that's pretty fun. The scanner deal was kind of neat though, because we tried to make it to where you didn't hear everything. It was just I had one radio where I would talk instead of hearing the people in the pits or the toilets overflowing or all the crap that you would catch on our radio. You're just listening to one person, and so that way there's not clutter. And really, it's just about, to me, as a person in the tower, your job is just to put on a safe environment for people to race. It's up to the racers to put on the show. Where you're standing up there, you're just trying to make sure that things are safe, and if you see something, that's what you want to tell. You don't need to tell people useless information,
right?
Because they're racing in the moment, and they don't need to know what doesn't matter. So that part of it, I did actually spot for a truck guy one night. There was a guy that ran, I don't even know who it was. He ran dirt, and he brought a truck out, and everybody has spotters, but he didn't have one. He came over after the driver's meeting, and he's like, "Hey, I ain't got no radio. I got a scanner." And so he's like, "We don't have a radio." And he had like one crew member with him or something. And so I was like, "Okay, well, here, put this in there, and I'll spot for you tonight, I guess." So
nice.
I probably didn't clear him at all. I just probably he probably was in trouble a lot, but it was kind of funny. I mean, he actually listened, and when he got done, he came over. He's like, "Man, I ain't never had nobody spot for me. That's pretty neat, you know. You did all right." I'm like, "Well, I wasn't really watching the whole time, so luckily nothing bad happened, but he had fun anyway."
Yeah. So what you doing this year, Brad? I'm sure that your phone rings a lot. I mean, I guarantee you there's racetracks that want you to come out and be a race director, spotting, whatever. I know your roots there deeply ingrained. I mean, what you got on tap for 2023? Are you just going to be a fan, or do you want to be an announcer? What do you have in store?
I don't know that I'd be good on the announcing part of it. It'd probably be some fun. I'm probably more of a fan. I want to really try to support Houston this year.
Yeah.
We made the first show that John and them did, and then we just had other stuff going on the last two. But really want to try to get up there and support those guys. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's where I've always been involved the most is with our round and round asphalt stuff. So I'm hoping does well. And they've got a good team of people there already, so that's great. And I'm a little limited with what I can do and stuff with the two kids and just work and stuff that I have. More so than I've ever been. I went and helped Gina at a race last year, and Mason couldn't go in Mobile, and would do the same again. She's, we talk every once in a while, and I root for them too the same way. So always kind of leave it open. To do stuff full time is not really in or every race. I can't commit to it, and so I don't want to get involved a little bit and then leave somebody high and dry or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because when you get involved in this stuff, I mean, it's just it kind of wraps you up pretty tight, and you're on it a lot. So if you can't devote the time
Every
that it
damn
needs,
day.
I don't want to get involved and not be able to do it. But yeah, definitely, like I say, want to get up to Houston as much as possible to the races. I'm hoping, like I say, that the stuff can grow out there. They got a challenge ahead of them, just like any other racetrack at this point, and also probably try to get to I-37 Cotton Bowl. We went to the World Outlaw Deal last year and had some fun at Cotton Bowl. It's a trip from our house, but enjoy Marianne and H and them. They're great people and everything. So would like to get up there and see them a little bit more. And then, like I say, I-37 got a lot of friends and people that we know that race out there. And that's kind of the closest to home for us anyway. So the dirt deal, I can go get into it a little bit, and see friends and stuff like that. I'm still not the biggest dirt guy, but it is the best show in town these days. So I'm not going to knock it, I guess.
Yeah, no doubt. Always a great conversation, my friend. Thanks for checking in. Tell the redhead hello and love on those kids for us, dude. Hopefully, look forward to seeing you at a racetrack this year. We'll do,
man. We'll be around. We'll be around some, and as always, appreciate what y'all do for racing in general and being involved with this stuff and trying to put words out there and give people entertainment. The racing community needs as many people like y'all as possible to kind of keep it in the right light. So I always appreciate that. And definitely we'll, I guess, see y'all probably at Houston or maybe a dirt track somewhere.
We'll find a parking lot somewhere, my man.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your time, Brad. Take care.
All right, guys. Y'all take care.
You bet. There he goes, Brad Bush. And that, to me, that is always one of the best conversations because, you talk to him and I love it. I wanted to have him on because, like I said, they're about a parking lot. I mean, you sit there and you talk and seriously, what they did, him and Chris and what they did with San Antonio and then with Kyle. I mean, that's the goal for any racetrack because that was bare bones. That was the bottom of the barrel. I mean, you want to talk about the odds stacked against you. Those fucking dudes right there made it happen. And that's what people need to aspire to be.
Well, I think it was an incredible experience for them.
Yeah,
an incredible experience for the fans. I mean, obviously, when Oktoberfest opened back up that first time, when you've got record number of people, you've got to announce, get closer, sit cheek to cheek, because we need more people in the grandstands. You got to start turning people away. I mean, that's a good problem to have at a racetrack, but the challenge was there. And, it reminded me of the conversations that we've had with Brad in the parking lot there at the Holiday Inn. Just talking shop, talking racing, and talking about all the really good stuff that racing has to offer. With our senses. It's nice to know that we're not the only ones that kind of question being involved 24/7, but it is what it is sometimes.
Yeah, and he has great insight. And the thing is, where Brad is different that I know of. I think we've asked him this before. I don't think he's ever driven. Maybe he's driven before, but not on a full-time basis or whatever. He'd have to tell us. But just everything that he does right there. And like when you ask the question about the race director thing, because that. 2 jobs I would not want to have. 1, you've done it, race director. 2, tech guy. But like I said, Brad was always so good. And with the hummingbird, with the bees in the dwarf cars, he was always so calming. I remember, leading races and coming up on people, and I'm like, okay, what do I do right here? And he's telling this guy, number whatever you need to get out of the way, go high because the leader's coming, and they would do just what he said, and it was very calming, and he's very good at that, and I think that's something that that demeanor right there is important in that job, like you were talking about. That that's a hornet's nest to jump into that job. And of course, you ran into Dave Mater of all people in your first job.
First time doing it, got Dave Mater grilling me.
It's like, man, I'm just here to do my work. But I mean, those are those jobs. But when you find people like Brad, and I mean, all of the folks that do this, and you know, Mason does an exceptional job at what he does. It's a lot. That is a hellacious job to do, and Brad does it and does it really well.
Yeah, for years.
Yeah,
filling in there for Mason and stuff like that. So I got to make it a goal to get out back to Mobile at some point in 2023. Gina's been asking me when I'm coming, and that SRL national race is a good time to go, but I might try to make a race or two even outside of that.
Yeah. It's a good time. And Houston as well. I mean, I hope only the best, I mean, for Houston. I mean, I think Houston is going to do really well because here's what Houston has going for them. They have a truck class that is strong. I mean, they've got lots of them. They've got the modifieds that a lot of tracks don't have. I'll tell you right now, with Mobile, we ain't got them. I mean, but you gotta.
Yeah, the ones you had were Texas cars.
That's exactly right. You've got a good contingent here in Texas that want a place to race. You've got the eco stocks. I want to tell the eco stock drivers in Texas, look, you guys guys and ladies have wanted a place to race for a long time. They're doing it for you. I mean, I know 105, and this is where you don't fault 105. 105 gave them a place to race, so a lot of folks don't want to go to the asphalt track. But your dates are out there. I mean, it's all there. It's all there. I mean, go get it. I mean, go. You can do them both. I don't know if the dates coincide. I don't know how any of that works. I haven't dug into that far enough. But you wanted race dates. You got them. Put them on your calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. Now's the time to start making that calendar. We should, in theory, be getting South Texas dates coming up here shortly with the Race Ranch, and Edna should be coming up here shortly. Can't speak for Owen, but they're bound to be coming because the 37 schedule's out. We got the news about the Southern Crate Late Model Series coming up, so that frees up Owen just a little bit. So hopefully we'll have all the schedules out, be ready to rock and roll here in a couple of more weeks.
Well, and I do want to talk about, because Owen had mentioned to me with the Race Ranch, and he is doing something on the 28th. I think it's kind of like a snowbird race. I think it's 1,000 to win for factory stocks and so forth. That right there, that's going to be a sleeper. That could be a race that I think that could blow a lot of stuff out of the water. I mean, that's how you do it right there, because I can tell you when I went to Corpus for the finale over there, you had folks, and I've said it for a long time, Corpus, they will show up. If the weather is good for that one, man, that is going to be a huge one. And I love that. January 28th at the Race Ranch, you got a date. That's the one you need to circle. And then you got the Snowbird Enduro happening at Heart of Texas. So Texas is kind of falling in there, you know, talking about Florida with all the racetracks happening, you know, with the Freedom Factory and New Smyrna and all of that. I mean, Texas kind of catching on right there on the dirt track side.
Yeah, it's getting closer, right? The exceptional car count there at the Freedom Factory, there with the this SRL Sportsman, even some of the Crown Vics and stuff like that. So Freedom Factory, they're really kind of, I don't want to say they're reinventing the wheel, but they definitely are changing how people are wanting to race down there in Florida.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I mean, they start early and they get off and going, and it looked like a really good weekend. They did tear some stuff up there at Dillon. See the end of that one? The street stock one, New Year's Bash. Tom O'Sullivan won that one, but he did it the Texas way. he did it the Texas way. He used the bumper. Kind of tore some stuff up in those stock cars.
Yeah, they did. They definitely were lots of hurt feelings and bent sheet metal there at the New Year's Bash.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of action happening right there. Before we get out of here, I do want to ask your opinion. So the news of the Cars Tour. The ownership change right there with Dale Jr., Kevin Harvick, Trackhouse, I mean, everything, Jeff Burton, all of that happening right there. I really think it's going to be important, and I think these guys get it, that you have to keep the Cars Tour what it's been. Late model stock cars, that really does seem to me to be something that moving forward is a great trend, but that's where, like we talk about the factory stocks in Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas, how are you going to keep that contained to where it doesn't get to become I don't know, pro late model or whatever. But the news of that dropping, and I had folks telling me it's not really an ownership change. I don't give a damn what it is. When you put those 4 names into that fold, and this was inevitable with Junior running those late model stock cars, you knew something was going on right here.
Oh, well, I mean, there's been the rumors that Junior was going to buy it going on for 3 months now.
Absolutely.
It was the addition of Kevin Harvick, Jeff Burton, and Justin Marks that are ones that made you raise your eyebrow and say, damn, these guys are investing. I still stand by what I sent you when I saw it. It's probably too many cooks in one oven or in one kitchen, if you will. So that's with all 4 of them. But I think that it's great to see this generation of racers at a top level of motorsports here in North America to start to give back in various ways. Obviously, Junior, with his popularity, he's had Junior Motorsports for a number of years. Harvick had it with KHI back in the day, and now it's turned into more of a management company and stuff like that. But what Justin Marks is doing, what he did at GoPro Motorplex, the little go-kart track there outside of Mooresville, and then what he's doing with Trackhouse and all that kind of stuff. You got the mayor. But I think, you've got the guys that are investing in ownership with Keselowski and Denny Hamlin, and is coming through that. You've got these guys investing in the Cars Tour, taking that over. So you got the best of the best that's reinvesting in the sport. And that's good because we've always wondered where the next group of car owners is going to come from. Now we're starting to see where the next group of series owners is going to be, the next wave of influential drivers are going to be. So it's a good thing. I just hope that all 4 of them can work together.
And we can talk about this more on Saturday. But if you're NASCAR and you see this to where you have, all of these influential people in your organization that are doing this, is this something that NASCAR is going to take a step back and say, all right, we have a legitimate contender? Because to me, SRL what do you call it? SRX. To me, SRX is not a legitimate whatever.
No, it's not. It's an alternative, but it's not.
It's something fun. It's something fun. Is this something that NASCAR is going to take a look and say, wait a minute, we've got some of our predominant people investing in something else. We need to do. I don't know what they need to do different, but is this going to put them on their tiptoes a little bit?
I don't think so, because NASCAR doesn't have the regional tours it once had, the little local grassroots regional tours. Back when you had the Southwest Tour and Northwest Tour, Kodak Southeast Tour, and all that good stuff, Busch North and some of that. When you had all those, it made a difference. Right now, basically, if it's anything below ARCA, NASCAR doesn't give a damn. And hell, depending on who you ask, NASCAR doesn't give a damn about ARCA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I was surprised to see how that all shook out, and good for them. And what I hope happens, like I put this, I posted this on Lone Star Speed Zone, LoneStarSpeedZone.com. I really hope that whatever happens, that they just keep doing what they've been doing with this series. Kind of like what we were talking about right there with Brad, to where things happen and then they blow up. And it's like the gray areas and all that. Don't change the rules. Let them be. Don't change a damn thing, because you have a lot of cars, you have a lot of fans, you have a lot of momentum, and you have great venues. And I saw something about, people were posting, well, hopefully now the Cars Tour will go to wherever. No, keep it regional. It doesn't need to go to Martinsville. It doesn't need to, well, I guess it's in Bristol and Nashville, but it needs to stick with the short tracks, because that's what we want. That's what we want that series to be.
Well, you can't reinvent the wheel here. Obviously, it's successful. There's a reason why those guys wanted to be part of it and take the ownership role of that.
Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily needs to be the Cup companion. I like what they did at North Wilkesboro, where it was kind of its own headlining show.
Yep.
Obviously, all that was the Dale Jr. effect, but it becomes one of those things where it's not a Cup alternative. It's not going to change the thing. What I think it is a way to get the grassroots more excited about Cup racing, and that's good for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Lastly, before we go, the biggest breaking news of them all: Buc-ee's breaking ground in Hillsboro. Of all places, my man, that is the place to stick a big-ass Buc-ee's. I think.
I don't know what about the one in Temple, man? That's a really good stop too. It's a little short on our side, but Hillsboro's about halfway between here and TMS.
Yeah, I think that's a really good place, though. I think that because it forks off. I mean, I think that's a really good place that you stick one in there. You've got some good spots in there anyway. That's what kind of worries me is that maybe some of those local businesses are going to feel the brunt of that. But I think it's a second spot to stop and take a piss, from Temple going up, depending on what your bladder's doing or whatever. But I think that's a good thing.
I'm just waiting for the one in Luling to open back up, the big one to come into town.
So is the other one closed?
No, the other one's still open. I hadn't been over there to figure out exactly where they're putting the new one. I don't know if it's going behind there, going across the street. I don't know what exactly it's going to do over there.
There's not a lot of room over there, so I'm wondering where that's going to be. I haven't quite seen that, but good for Caldwell County. I mean, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the biggest one in the country.
Damn, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. Hey, Bobby, 65-7. Your thoughts on that contest last night?
Damn sure wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I don't think any of the Frog faithful were anticipating that. Georgia just the disrespect shown to TCU. I get that it was a blowout, but everybody's saying they didn't belong, didn't do that. They did everything that was asked of them, and they made it to the final because they beat Michigan. So I think that it's a little bit much to be a little too harsh just because that score was so spread out and Georgia was so dominant. But it was a good time to be a Bulldog fan for sure. Going to see a few more T-shirts for sure since they went back to back.
Georgia is the standard. Just ask Nick Saban. How'd you like that look right there?
That was a good look, right? Wasn't it? So
don't poke the bear. Don't poke the bear. Yeah. We'll see what happens there with the Tide. All you Texas fans saying Texas could have done better, you couldn't beat TCU. No, you wouldn't have. That's all there is to it. Rest of the week.
But only team in the top 25 with 5 losses. Unbelievable.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Rest of the week, my man, what's going on? We're going to have to hit the bumper again because, once again, I've timed it wrong. Rest of the week, my friend, sizzling heat in Texas, waiting for the cool.
Yeah, just going to hang out the rest of the week. Got some stuff to do over the holiday weekend and gotta go a few places, get a few things done. But it'll be a nice checking out a little bit of Supercross on Saturday night. Try to work on the calendar when more of these dates come up, so we'll see what happens. It's always a good time right when racing season first gets started. You start working out all the dates on your calendar.
That's right. Lots of good stuff coming up. And remember, we are live on the Horn on Saturday. HornFM.com. If you are outside of the Austin area, we will have some hashtag Real Race Talk right there. Talk some Supercross. Talk about all kinds of cool stuff. So just check in right there. We'll be live on the radio. Bobby, have a great week, my man. Looking forward to doing this again. Thanks to Brad Bush. Great. Hashtag Real Race Talk. Hashtag Get Solid. That's what we do. Hashtag Unfiltered. Look forward to the next one, guys. Have a great week. We gone.